All right, guys, welcome back to episode 3 of No Casuals Podcast. This is a special episode because we are in person in the beautiful city of New York City, New York State. I'm here with my boy Luke. As you
So,
know, we're very excited to have you here. And let's get right into business, Luke. There's no time for pleasantries here because we're on a budget because this is going to be a very special episode because it's going to be part podcast, part vlog. Um, let's talk about the Nick Diaz fight scheduled for UFC 310. It's off now. Themba Gorimbo is now replacing Diaz to fight Vicente Luque. What do you think about the whole debacle situation going on there?
personally, as a Nick Diaz fan, having being someone that has his signed nunchucks, being someone that's followed his story, I think it's super sad, and I think it's something that maybe I expected but didn't want to expect, And it's just seeing that video, the one that surfaced online, where God knows what he's on and what he did. I don't want to give labels, but possible arson. I don't think that's a good look.
No, the way you phrased it is a little funny, but you're right. It's an alarming situation to witness, and especially a guy like Nick Diaz, a guy that we all love. It's really tragic to see where he's at right now. So
Mhm.
we're wishing him the best, hoping he gets what he needs.
Yeah.
Let's talk about February. Edson Barbosa is fighting Steve Garcia, a guy that we gave a little shout out to in the last episode for being one of the biggest underrated prospects in the division. Do you think a win over Steve Garcia gives him the name recognition he deserves, being on a five-fight knockout streak in the UFC, or what do you think?
Think he is gonna win, and like we talked about last episode, he's one of those guys that everyone should be keeping their eye on, and I really think that this is like you said, name recognition. This is going to be a huge fight for him to prove himself.
Yeah, I agree. I think Steve Garcia. I mean, if anyone knocks out Edson Barbosa, they're legit.
Yeah.
If you look at anyone that fights him and beats him, they're legit. Lerone Murphy is a very legitimate guy, and he beat Barbosa on the way to the top. If you look at Bryce Mitchell, who's a staple in the rankings, and he was able to knock down Barbosa. If you look at people that were able to knock out Barbosa, the list gets even shorter. You look at like Justin Gaethje almost. So if Garcia can continue the streak here, he's very much legitimate. Let's talk about UFC Tampa and the shakeup there. So, for those of you at home who do not know, Covington versus Buckley was the new main event for UFC Tampa, and Ian Machado Gary versus Shavkat Rakhmonov is a 5-round title eliminator in December, replacing the previously believed title fight between Bilal Muhammad and Shavkat Rakhmonov. Who do you got in those two fights, and why do you have them?
All right, so I have Buckley winning against Covington, and I think that that's just because stylistically he's going to overpower him not only on the striking. I mean, I'm curious to see how they match up wrestling, but I think that he's going to outstrike him, and I think he's going to be way too much pressure for Covington to handle, especially coming off a loss where he did not look that impressive. So I think Buckley is going to get that done probably pretty easily. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be an easy fight. I don't think Covington's an easy fight for anybody, but I do think that the stylistically Buckley reminds me a lot of Usman, big power, big, explosive shots, and Usman had his way with Covington twice. So I do believe that is how that will work out.
And then for the Rachmanov Gary fight, I I think most majority people you're going to talk to hear about are going to take Rachmanov, and I'm completely in agreement with them. Is that a word?
Agreement.
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 I'm completely in agreement with them. I don't. My head's on 309. I'm super nervous. I'm super excited. Um, and for all the right reasons, I think that he's gonna. Although I wish this was against Bilal, I think he's gonna run through Gary, and then he'll get his chance with Bilal. So I just have to stay patient, and then I'll get to see that amazing matchup.
Yeah, and I think welterweight really right now is a division of complete mixed martial artists, from Buckley to Muhammad to Usman to Rachmanov. These guys are good at everything, and Machado Gary is a one-trick pony. I mean, he really is. He's got elite striking, great kickboxing, great Muay Thai, but on the ground, he's really not never been tested.
Right.
So I'm excited to see what Rachmanov can do on the ground, and I think Rachmanov finds a finish here, and I think he finds a submission here. Let's talk a little bit about last night's boxing fight. I know this isn't a boxing podcast, but the world was watching Mike Tyson box Jake Paul. What do you think of that fight? What do you think of everything, all the narratives, all the storylines? Just give me your raw thoughts.
So I think that saying it was rigged is a little bit ridiculous, especially because I was someone who completely thought that this was going to be rigged. I completely went into this thinking, all right, we're going to see some wild knockout. We're going to see something that's going to be like this was so obviously a setup. And after watching the fight, I can say fully to my best of my knowledge that I don't see how that fight would be rigged. Now, I think that when people say that Mike Tyson, it looks like he was like paid off not to throw punches or something like that, you have to keep in mind every time this man sat down when there was a break in between rounds, he looked absolutely winded. We saw him like literally like how heavy he was breathing. It didn't look right. This is a 60-year-old man, and this is someone who, or basically, but this is someone who, um, you can't have these expectations that he's going to be out here throwing a high volume of punches against someone like Jake Paul. Like he was mostly playing defense. I think that wore him out, and it makes sense why he wasn't throwing a lot of punches.
Um, yeah, look, I'm in complete agreement with that. I think Tyson just bit off more than he could chew. I think it was just a little too much for him. I think Jake Paul just he's too young, too fast, too strong. I was telling people before the fight the physical advantage of Jake Paul is going to be too much for a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. I'd love to see the fight 15 years ago, but alas, that's not how time works. But I do want to make a note. Quick side note: I want to talk about the historic nature of Taylor versus Serrano, the co-main event of that card. What is likely going to be the most viewed female boxing match in history of the sport. I just want to give my take first. I think it's incredible. I think it was great that MVP and Jake Paul put that on the co-main. It was a great fight. I think it showcased a lot of people what boxing can be before the sort of disaster that was the main event. What do you think, Luke?
Completely agree. I completely agreement. I think that just like you said, like them having that as the co-main, it's almost like they knew what was going to happen on the
Yeah.
main card or the main event. So yeah, yeah, it's good.
And look, we got to transition off to the fan favorite segment, what most people consider the best segment on the show, what makes us us. If we scooch over a little bit, we've got room for one more guest on this couch. So, this is
What's up, guys?
welcome to TED
It's
Talks.
Ted. So I've got another hot take for you. I know you guys probably heard my hot take on the last episode, but just mere hours before the fight, gonna give you guys another one. So my official prediction for this main card matchup between Bo Nickel and Paul Craig is I have Paul Craig beating Bo Nickel. I just don't see Bo Nickel beating Paul Craig. Paul Craig is a bigger guy. I saw him. Luke and I both saw him at the weigh-ins. He's looking huge, and I just don't think that Bo Nickel can beat a guy like Paul Craig, let alone submit him. And I just think Paul Craig has the strength advantage, and I think it's gonna be a great fight. But I think Paul Craig is gonna come out victorious, and I think he's gonna do it in style with a submission.
All right, Teddy, as you know, this is no casuals. And of course, we can't have casuals on the podcast. I think you get to stay on this couch though, because I think I agree with you actually. I think I'm going to go with the underdog here. I think Paul Craig is too slippery with submissions. I think the striking is where this fight comes down to it. Nickel is not a great striker. Craig is a worse striker, but I can see a reality where Craig gets knocked down and does something off his back, and Bo Nickel comes in
Exactly.
foolishly
Yeah.
as
Absolutely.
a young fighter and, but goes to the ground and all of a sudden he's in a triangle choke, tapping for his life.
Mhm.
I completely agree. And we know Craig has these tendencies to get these prospects or these guys that look unbeatable and just shut them down, especially in moments where you think that he is finished. We saw how Ankalaev worked. He was completely losing that fight and then he turns it around. So is there's a second that Bo Nickel gets cocky and gets into a position where he thinks that he can, absolutely close this out, he has to second guess himself and take extreme caution.
Okay, Ted, I think you get to stay on the couch for the rest of the episode. I think we all agree with you, man.
Sweet.
Let's go fight by fight. Let's go really quick picks. If we disagree, we might dwell on it a little bit, but we're gonna try to keep this quick. So, okay. So first up, opening curtain jerker, Hardy versus Mora. Who do we got
I
down the
got
line?
I got Hardy.
Hardy.
Mora. Uh,
Bro, just
Look, here's the thing. Hardy is on a 3-fight win streak. She looks like a new, rejuvenated version of herself. Mora's only lost once in a professional career, though, and it's to Denise Gomes, who I think is an absolute killer and is really the future of the division. There's reasons why they call Mora Ronda. She's a big star. She's got big power, big finishing ability. I see her winning, not only winning, but winning decisively tonight. Uh, correct. Fazer Hafez versus Oban Elliott. Who do we got?
I got Oban, and I think on another note, I think the Welsh crowd is really going to show out. We saw a little bit of it at the weigh-ins, but I think I got Oban.
I got Oban.
I agree. Oban Elliott is going to win by decision. Mickey Gall versus Ramiz Brahimaj. Brahimaj.
Rahamaj.
Brahimaj.
Rahamaj.
Brahimaj.
Brahmaj, I think, yeah.
Brahimaj.
As much as I want Mickey Gall to win, I think it goes to Brahmaj.
I'm taking Gall.
I'm gonna agree with you, Luke. I think there's just too much veteranship on the side of Mickey Gall. These are both New Yorkers, both local fans, both local heroes. I'm excited to see a good fight. I think this will be a fun fight. Marcin Tybura versus Jonata Diniz.
I got Tybura. I just think he's really experienced, but on the other hand, I can't read. Denise is undefeated, and I think that plays a big factor. But I just got to go Tybura. I think he has the upper hand when it comes to experience.
I got Deniz. I know we're hyping him up a lot on this last podcast, and I think that this is a chance for him to prove himself again. And Tybura, his experience is going to be a tough matchup against this, somewhat veteran. So yeah, I got him winning knockout, second round.
Hey, look, here's my take. I'm gonna yap a little bit here because I've thought about this. This is the fight I've thought about the most in the lead up because I think it's the closest fight on the card. Denise looked incredible against Carl Williams. He really did. He looked very good against Carl Williams. He was a guy I thought should have been ranked, to be honest, at heavyweight for a long time. He's no longer in the UFC, which I think is ridiculous. But Denise looked great against him. Denise looked really, really good against Carl Williams, a guy that was supposed to beat him, a guy that was one of the best wrestlers in the division, one of the best, ground and pounders in the division. And unfortunately, what we saw was in Tabura, we see a submission threat. We see a different style of grappler. We see a grappler nonetheless. And Carl Williams could not get his takedowns off against Denise. However, Denise is been in there against ranked guys. He's beaten ranked guys. He can beat these guys that are unranked. I think Tabura gets it done. I think it's going to be a much closer fight than most people predict. Because most people on one side or the other, I think it's going to be down to the wire. I think it's going to be very close. Let's talk about Ricardo, his first name, right?
Romero. Yeah.
Romero Roberto.
I think this is gonna be a really good fight. There's a little bit of bad blood between the two. They were really tense during their face off, and I think this is gonna be a fight that really stands out on this card. But I gotta go with Onama. I just think he's more sharp, more well-rounded, and I think that I think Roberto is feeling the pressure in his debut, which I think plays a big factor. So I gotta go with Onama.
Yeah, I agree. I think Aiden earlier in the day said, it says a lot that Onama is the big favorite on this card. So yeah, it's gonna be too much for Roberto Romero, or am I butchering that, bro? Romero
Roberto.
Roberto. But in the end, like I don't really know anything about this guy. So please prove me wrong, I'd love to see it.
Um, yeah, for Onama, I feel like he's just too powerful. He's too strong. He's proven himself against good guys. He is a good featherweight. He's not the cream of the crop, but he's good. To see him be a favorite like this and a guy that has lost in the UFC is shocking. I think Onama's gonna bonk him. You know what I'm saying? I think it's gonna be Onama by knockout.
Okay, Miller versus Jackson. I love Jim Miller so much, and I think he's got the home crowd here. Um, and as much as I want, there's no part of me that wants Jackson to win. I think I can speak for a lot of people when I say we want to see Jim Miller come out with a victory, but I think I just have to give this one to Jackson. Jim Miller, he's been in this sport for so long, and I think it's just starting to take a toll on him. And this could be his last fight, and I want him to win, but I think I got to go to Jackson. He's just the younger and the faster guy.
I completely disagree. I don't think that I think we've seen a sharper Jim Miller even as he gets older. I mean, his last few fights were very impressive, and I think he's going into this fight knowing, okay, this is going to be my last fight. This is my retirement fight. I'm in the Garden. I need to put on a show. I need to get the win, and I need to retire in style.
Yeah, I don't even know if this is Miller's retirement fight. I think Miller's going to try to keep going to 400, but we'll see what happens. But I also think, though, is that Miller's going to win tonight. I think he's going to knock Damon Jackson out. Damon Jackson is a guy that is severely underrated by fights fans. He's always hanging outside of the rankings. He's a good fighter, but he's always been hittable. If you look at the Topuria fight, I think that's a blueprint for Jim Miller. I think if he pressures him, gets in his cage, and unloads his right hand, I think that'll put him to sleep.
All right, Weidman versus Anders. Weidman again is one of my favorite fighters, but and I'm gonna pick him to win. I got Chris.
All right. Well, I got Weidman. I got Weidman to win.
Is Weidman?
Now
What
this
is
is
that?
no, I have to
Weidman
explain.
every
I have to
time.
explain. This is my fault. This is my fault because for a long time I used to say Weidman,
Yeah.
and I think that rubbed off on Teddy, and this is completely
All
my
right,
fault. So
Weidman.
don't blame
I got
blame me.
Weidman.
I used to completely. This is my fault. I remember my first episode.
Yeah.
I even said Weidman.
Yeah, I corrected
So
you.
that is my fault. But yeah, I got Weidman to win, and yeah, home crowd. It should be fun. Tom Petty, can't wait.
And look, when Weidman walks out, it's a wonderful time, man. But look, we all love Chris Weidman. He's a great guy. However, I do think he looks very sharp against Bruno Silva. He looks good. But Eric Anders is a tried and true gatekeeper. He's a real divisional mainstay. He's a good guy. I think Anders gets it done here. I think it's gonna be close. I don't think it'll be the most exciting fight in the world. I'm hoping for a Weidman win, but I'm expecting an Anders win tonight.
All right, Martinez versus McGee. I'm gotta go with Martinez in this one. I just think, he shared the octagon with, guys like Jose Aldo and I just think he's such a sharp fighter, and I gotta go with Martinez on this one.
So I disagree. I got McGee. I think McGee is highly, highly underrated in this division. And I think that he's also one of those guys that not a lot of people have their eye on. And I think that he should be. And he should be one of the more hyped up guys because I think he's going to go into this fight against a ranked opponent like Martinez, who's dangerous, coming off fighting Aldo. So I think that he's going to beat him.
See, I'm with you here, Teddy. I think that Martinez stylistically it works for Martinez's favor. Martinez is great at kicking, especially in the legs. McGee is a much more pure boxer. So the way I see it playing out is that Martinez can get him at range and sort of pick him apart.
All right, this next one's really exciting. Rufi versus I want to say it's Lantop Yamez.
Yeah, with Lanta. Yeah.
Lantop. So one thing I just want to note out that is that at the weigh-ins, Lantop has not an out. He barely has any muscle on him. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Rewatch the weigh-ins, you can see for yourself. Anyways, I got Rufi. I think I'm so excited for his debut. Another one of the fighting nerds, and I think it's only gonna get better for that team. And I think Rufi is gonna really make a name for himself for tonight.
So I agree with you. I don't think that the muscle is as important. I mean, we've seen guys like Paulo Costa get absolutely destroyed, having some of the best physiques, having some of the most amount of muscle. I don't think that's indicative of their fighting style or ability. But I think that Mauricio Rufy goes and gets it done. He's one of the big prospects on this card. We've seen the 309 kind of be built around some goats, but some up and comers, and he's one of these guys that I think is going to get out there and get it done tonight.
And look, we look at Lonta, we look at a guy that is UFC caliber. He's 0-2 in the UFC, but against good opponents, against high level opponents. This guy belongs here, and the fact that he took this fight on short notice, credit to him. If you're talking about muscle mass, I don't think it really matters. If you put me and Teddy in a cage, I walk out 10 times out of 10. But I do still have Rufy winning by first round knockout here.
All right, Eridwell versus Silva. Did I pronounce that wrong?
Araujo, Araujo,
Araujo.
Araujo.
You did good.
Okay, so this was one of the first fights announced on the card. I've been, I guess, knowing about this for a while, and I've had this pick in for a while, but I got to go with Ed. Fuck it.
Araujo.
Viviani.
Viviani. Um, I just think she's sharper, more well-rounded, and I think we saw they're both very respectful towards each other, but I think this is going to be a good fight, and I think Viviani takes it.
I don't have a lot to say about this fight at all. I haven't done my research really as much as I should. But I'm gonna go and agree with Teddy, and we'll see what happens tonight.
I guess it'll be the descending vote because Silva's a big favorite in Vegas, and I think that
And
she
then she's a
should
big
be.
favorite,
I
yeah.
think she should be. She's on a 4-fight win streak, 3 of them coming by stoppage. I think that she's a submission wizard. I think Viviane Araujo is the best fighter that she has fought in her professional career. I do believe that. But I'm not going to say it's been an easy road for Carinza. But Carinza has shown she can beat and finish the top of the top. I think she'll do the same tonight. We already talked about Bo Nickel versus Paul Craig, so I think we'll skip straight to the co-main event of the evening, if you guys are cool with that.
Sounds good. So Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. I think the world is so excited for this fight. This is gonna be absolute fireworks, and it's gonna be a great one. I gotta go. I know my hot take was Michael Chandler in episode 2, and I think that's a possible outcome for this fight. But my heart wants Charles Oliveira. I'm a huge Oliveira fan, and I'm going with Charles. Go Bronx.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways for me, this co-main is more exciting than the main card or in the main event. And I completely agree with Teddy. I think that Oliveira is going to get it done tonight. I think that Chandler might play a little bit more reserved, and that might be to his detriment. And we'll see what happens. But if Oliveira isn't as patient, he goes out there swinging. I think he could knock down Chandler, maybe get a quick submission earlier rounds. So we'll see what happens. This is a 5-round co-main, so it should be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I find this to be a fascinating fight. I don't think it even goes 3 rounds, let alone 5. But I do find that a patient Chandler is a very scary thing for any fighter in any division of the UFC. I think that Chandler's biggest flaw is sort of his ability to put the foot on the gas and sort of run you out of town. But unfortunately, he tends to do that to his own detriment. So I think that if he comes out patient and he fights a smart fight, I think he can absolutely beat anybody in the lightweight division, including Islam Makhachev, the current champion. However, I think he's born to be a warrior. I think he's born to be a fighter. I think Oliveira will see that, take him down, and submit him on the ground.
All right, the main event for all the marbles, the GOAT, John.
Well, some of the marbles.
All right, some of the marbles. The GOAT, John Jones, versus the greatest heavyweight of all time, Stipe Miocic. This fight, there's so many opinions on it, and I think over the last couple of days, John Jones is getting into that angry state of mind that he gets before fights, and I think that is what's gonna carry him to victory here, and I think he throws a couple of 12 to 6 elbows at some point in the fight, and I think I got to go with the GOAT. I just don't think you can bet against him. Even with a guy who's the greatest heavyweight of all time, I just think John Jones takes it.
So my mind's changed a lot from on this fight past couple of weeks, I think maybe for a lot of people. But talking to Aiden today, being at the weigh-ins, seeing the crowd chanting Tommy, Tommy, Tommy. This guy, I mean, Aspinall is in Jones's head, and whether he likes it or not, Jones might find himself distracted in the octagon. I mean, I don't know. I think that ultimately I know I've been on Jones like in the past episode and even these past couple weeks, but I think Stipe gets it done. I hate to say it, but I think that's what's going to happen. And if he does, this is one of the most remarkable victories, one of the most remarkable upsets in the history of the sport.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think that Stipe has a puncher's chance, as any heavyweight ever does. But I also find that Cyril Gane is a better heavyweight than Stipe Miocic. And stylistically, sure, it's a different fight. Stipe is much better on the ground than Cyril Gane is, but Cyril Gane got dominated on the feet and on the ground by John Jones. I think that John Jones is just simply on a higher level than most heavyweights in the world, with the exclusion of Tom Aspinall. Now, look, you're looking at a vulnerable John Jones. You're looking at a John Jones who's more easily distracted than ever before. He's more narcissistic. He's more terrible than he usually is. We're seeing one that seemingly is unbothered by hitting pregnant women with cars and doing cocaine, but is very bothered with another fighter, calling him out in the most polite Manchester way possible. So I think that we're seeing a weakened John Jones, and I think a weakened John Jones will still take care of business tonight and take out Stipe Miocic. So expect a vlog in coming days, probably in a week, because we'll do our podcast earlier next week. But this is going to be out shortly before the fights. We'll do some quick editing, and then we'll send it right out to you guys. With that, coming from Madison Square Garden, the most historic arena in combat sports, it's been a pleasure. This is No Casuals.